Folks, today we have breaking news from one of my personal favorite politicians, the man of the people, the only justification for not having enforceable term limits, the Democratic socialist bad boy Bernie Sanders, who today thankfully stepped into the boiling debate over the H-1B visa program and took aim at tech billionaire Mar-a-Lago's single biggest renter, apparently, and thus undeniably Trump's butt buddy, aka the big spoon, Elon Musk. And y'all, I don't know if Elon's gonna be able to sit down after the absolute Tucker Carlson level spanking that Bernie gave him today.
There has to be a point at which Dad comes home. And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
If you also love when conservatives and billionaires get a taste of their own medicine and you find yourself enjoying this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. Now, before we get to Bernie absolutely smacking down Elon's arguments and reasoning behind the H-1B visa program that we all know are ludicrous billionaire propaganda, it's worth sharing this reminder from the billionaire buster himself just how disconnected Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, corporate media, and billionaires and corporations' interests writ large are from everyday Americans' interests.
Today in America, you got three people who own more wealth than the bottom half of our country. Got it? So Elon Musk and a couple of other guys, just those three people, own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Is that satisfactory? Okay, is that what America is supposed to be about? All right. Is that discussed at all? Think about it the last time you heard it discussed on TV. Last time you heard it discussed, maybe with the exception of me and a few others, in Congress. Why aren't we discussing that issue if it's really quite so outrageous? Why? Okay. If somebody got shot down the street, it would be a front page story, right? But somehow this issue of mass income and wealth inequality is not an issue. Why?
Corporate control of the media.
Good. All right, tell me about that.
That means billionaires get to say what we see in front of us.
If you have all the money, you get to make up all of what this country gets to represent.
Good. All right. The issue is what reporters and TV stations prioritize. The issue of mass income and wealth inequality, the fact that the people on top have never ever had it so good, while 60% of working people are struggling to get by on inadequate incomes and are living paycheck to paycheck. That is not a story. Got it? So somebody decides what's important. So I've been in a million debates in my life. Nobody ever asked me, Bernie, what are you going to do about income and wealth inequality? It's not even on the table. And that is because the people who own the media are doing phenomenally well, and they don't really want to start a discussion. If the whole country was talking about, God, this is outrageous. Top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. Boy, what are we going to do about that? Let's have that discussion. Not to be discussed.
Incredibly powerful stuff right there, and spot on. You know, that is why I personally get a lot of my news from YouTube, from Midas Touch, Occupy Democrats, our own channel as well. You know, these independent media sites that are far less beholden to corporate interests. I mean, you could say exactly what he said about Elon Musk, the corporate media, and why we're not talking about wealth inequality, and pretty much apply that to why Donald Trump got elected. He makes the media money, right? And thankfully, like in this case here, there are people like Bernie Sanders who can cut through the BS and give it to Americans straight. He put out a very long statement today on the need for major reforms in the H-1B visa program, and he tagged it on Twitter saying, Elon Musk is wrong. The main function of the H-1B visa program is not to hire, quote, the best and the brightest, but rather to replace good-paying American jobs with low-wage indentured servants from abroad. Why? Because the cheaper labor they hire, the more money the billionaires make. Hyper-capitalism at its finest. And I'll link to the full post down below, but some very notable parts here in the Takedown are in 2022 and 2023, the top 30 corporations using this program laid off at least 85,000 American workers while they hired over 34,000 new H-1B guest workers. There are estimates that as many as 33% of all new information technology jobs in America are being filled by guest workers. And further, according to Census Bureau data, there are millions of Americans with advanced degrees in science, technology, engineering, and math who are not currently employed in those professions. And hear me out, because as a millennial, this is incredibly disturbing and frustrating. Someone who was told and kind of force-fed my entire upbringing that going to college for a degree was the only way to success, to do better than my parents. Paying for university on my own only to be thrown into an oversaturated market where that higher wage that I'm supposed to be getting is now going to cheaper foreign labor. That's fucked up. He continues, if there really is a shortage of skilled tech workers in America, why did Tesla lay off over 7,500 American workers this year, including many software developers and engineers at its factory in Austin, Texas, while being approved to employ thousands of H-1B guest workers? Moreover, if these jobs are only going to the best and the brightest, why has Tesla employed H-1B guest workers as associate accountants for as little as $58,000, associate mechanical engineers for as little as $70,000 a year, and associate material planners for as little as $80,000 a year? Those don't sound like highly specialized jobs that are for the top 0.1%, as Musk claimed this week. He even mentions H-1B guest workers being employed as dog trainers, massage therapists, cooks, English teachers. We really can't find English teachers in America? Let's be clear, to the extent that there are many labor shortages in our country and some highly specialized areas that need to be filled by employees from abroad through the H-1B program, we must utilize this program as a very short-term and temporary approach. In the long term, if the United States is going to be able to compete in a global economy, we have to make sure that we have the best educated workforce in the world. And one way to help make that happen is to substantially increase the guest worker fees large corporations pay to fund scholarships, apprenticeships, and job training opportunities for American workers. But this hero's compassion goes beyond just looking out for American workers. As he says, further, we must also significantly raise the minimum wage for guest workers, allow them to easily switch jobs, and make sure that corporations are required to aggressively recruit American workers first before they can hire workers from overseas. The widespread corporate abuse of the H-1B program must be ended. Bottom line, it should never be cheaper for a corporation to hire a guest worker from overseas than an American worker. Which is so ironic, right? Because we're going to impose tariffs on imports of goods under Donald Trump, but then we're going to somehow not do that for labor. How the hell are we going to bring back manufacturing jobs if we're not also creating manufacturing jobs? You can bring a plant here, sure, but plants are way more productive and efficient with less operating people and labor than they were years ago. You bring back one plant, you're bringing back a fraction of the jobs you would have in manufacturing. If only someone had gone to school for economics and actually paid attention. And I wish I could read you this entire thing, but for time, we'll just end with this last statement because it is so spot on. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the richest 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our country, and when the CEOs of major corporations make almost 300 times more than their average workers, we need fundamental changes in our economic policies. We need an economy that works for all, not just the few. And one important way forward in that direction is to bring about major reforms in the H-1B. So thank you to Senator Bernie Sanders for putting this together, for saying what needs to be said, and for shutting down Elon Musk, Ramaswamy, and the corporate billionaire greed that will continue to screw MAGA over whether they know it or not, and has been screwing this country over for decades. If that man and those ideas are something that you support, please consider supporting the Really American channel as we go into this new year, bringing you the news you need to hear from real people who engage with you and are not beholden to corporations, corporate interests, and billionaire wish lists for cheap labor. Eat the rich, and Happy New Year, folks. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you guys in the next one.